Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock here, practicing necromancer. And today I want to kind of talk to you about the importance of knowledge seeking. And at the same time, I want to touch base on something I mentioned in my last video as well, which is bettering yourself. Okay. And this is why. One of the questions that came to me recently, and I was kind of bored this morning, so I was kind of going through all my messages. And a message that actually stuck out was someone had asked me, how do you remove alcohol from your chalice? Okay. How do you remove it? And the answer to that is quite simplistic, really. Learn alchemy. Everything that has a reaction can have a reaction. Okay. It's that chemical balance thing. For an example, the sugar in alcohol. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's Mexican tequila. It doesn't matter if it's rum, vodka, even say for an example, wine. It's that sugary compound that basically makes alcohol when it sits turn into almost like a hardened gel, if you will, and it kind of makes it look like a bar of soap. Okay, within your chalice. And some practitioners have been known to when they give these types of offerings, they don't always clean them after a certain period of time. Like if you're doing a ritual or you're doing a ceremonial rite that takes place over a long period of time, they don't always clean out the chalice in between, you know, the rituals. Okay. Now, if you're going between rituals, it's always good to clean out your chalice and clean up your altar room. It keeps the energy flowing unhindered. But if you're doing, say, for an example, an offering and you're giving the alcohol to a spirit or a entity, you always leave it there. It's like giving money to those that you work with and that you call upon, your patrons and patronesses. So you never want to remove that. Okay. But when it comes to your chalice, you use this tool. You use this tool on every ritual, every ceremony. Okay. So you really want to have an understanding of the chemical workings. So to answer the question, how do you remove alcohol from a chalice that's sat for a number of days, perhaps even months, weeks even, weeks, months, whatever you want to call it? The answer is simple. Add salt. Okay. Salt is one of the most basic compounds that you can get at any grocery store. It doesn't matter if it's regular salt, like say table salt, or if it's sea salt. Okay. Normally, what I do is I will turn the water on to warm water. Okay. And I let it heat up. And while I do that, I pour this, say, just a table salt, like say, or even sea salt over the alcohol that's dried up into like kind of like how should I say this, like a bar of soap type thing where it's hard and you can't cut it, you can't do anything with it. You're going to have to chisel and basically damage your chalice if you do it that way. So what I do is I pour the salt over it and I let it sit for a couple of seconds. And then what I do is I let the warm water go over that. Okay, not much, just a little bit. And I let it kind of just sit there because as the salt separates the sugars, that water is going down in and it's recreating a gel like effect. Think think of honey, if you will, when you're pouring it from a bottle with a squeeze bottle onto a piece of bread. You see how that kind of comes out, right? Well, basically, that's what happens. It becomes loose enough that it becomes like a gel. So all you have to do is take that butter knife and just kind of scrape it out. Not much, not hard, just a little bit. And it comes out little bits at a time. And this takes roughly about 5 to 10 minutes to do, depending on how much alcohol you have in your chalice. Now, what's interesting here is that by the time you're down at the very bottom, you're going to have probably about that much that's going to be left over. Okay. And by the time you get to that section, you can actually scrape the knife right across it and you can actually see how hard it is at that point. But by the time it's down to that little bit, you're able to go from the edge and just push down and it tips right up. Okay. And that's with the hot water on top of it. Okay. So that's pretty cool to know. So learning knowledge is having knowledge is something that is important. Okay. Like bettering yourself. You can sit there, like I said in yesterday's video, and just pray for 6 months to a deity. When it comes down to it, is it you applying for that job, for that event to happen, or are you the one actually going out and doing it? You know what I'm saying? Are you going out and doing this, or are you having a spirit go out and do this? Okay. In the JCI, they'll tell you to go to the altar, take it to the altar. Okay. And what's interesting here is, like I said in yesterday's video, I've watched apostolics sit there for 6 months to a year and a half just praying. But it comes down to that minister who decides to pick up that phone and go, hey, let him have it. And people listen. People listen because he's a pastor, he's a minister, he's a man of the cloth. So they get it at a fraction of a cost. Okay. But what about those of us that are not in a church? About those of us that are not welcome? Like, say, witches, warlocks, okay, shamans, even necromancers. Necromancy is perhaps one of the most solitary practices out there, like being a magi. Okay, you're going to have to learn for yourself. You're going to have to go out there, pick up books, spend countless hours reading and studying and experimenting, always seeking that next notch on your belt. A warlock is considered in today's society as an oath breaker, liar, and betrayer, and this comes from the Welsh and Anglo-Saxon etymology. People forget that witches and warlocks have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Okay, and they were known as the keepers of the secrets, the sacred knowledge. Okay, you look at the medicine man, you look at the Eshi, the Aji, the Hexa, okay, the Strega, the Strigoi, even if you want to get into vampiric practices. Okay, but the two oldest practices going back to the 6th century BC happens to be the necromancer and the shaman. Okay, and it's interesting because when you start getting into elixirs, you start getting into remedies. Okay, you're going to have that knowledge of the herbs and what they do. Over the last couple of days, I have been putting in my personal group. It's invite only, and it's mostly for the brotherhood, if you will, the kindred, the kin, and it's basically I've been putting this knowledge in there of herbs, specifically that of poisons. Because if you look at elixirs, there are certain elixirs that will help you become more spiritually attuned. Okay, that will bring you to the point of death without actually bringing on death itself. You live in that intermediary for a short time. Even if you get into sorceress Cagliestro's work, the blood sorcery, you know, Bible Volume 1 and 2. Personally, I prefer Blood Sorcery 1 because it's actually a lot more information there. For some reason I just couldn't get into, and connect with the second book, but it's there for you if you wish to get into it. She gives 20 to 30 pages, about halfway to three-fourths way through the book, on just medical techniques. Okay, she even throughout the book gives you remedies for elixirs and spell workings, such as blood, such as semen, such as ritualized scrying mirror type rituals where you smear blood across the mirror. Okay, you look at hemomancy, one of the oldest known practices of blood sorcery. Today, it's known as phlebotomy. Okay, now how would you know that if I had just told you? Okay, I can give you little bits of scraps, but I'm not the one doing the research. It's you who's got to go out there and do it because I've already been there and done that, and I'm still going with it. Okay, so when you seek out knowledge, it's not about anyone else. It's about you. You're the one trying to better your own life, your own um, position in life. Okay. Only you can decide what path fits you. So if you're looking at, say, for an example, let's go with becoming a brujo. Okay. A brujo runs a botanica. Okay. And a lot of people pay good money to go to a brujo down south, specifically that of in Central America, such as Mexico, South America, and even here in North America. Okay. It's the same thing with going to a Bokor or a Capilata, a Merenderos, a warlock, a necromancer, because these beings are considered to be outcasts in today's society. They are solitary practitioners that are not a part of the cultural norms. They're outside the system, looking in. They actually have to work for what they have. Now, I don't know about you, but personal pride comes into play there. It's not about ego, it's about pride. So when you go out and you do something and you achieve that victory, does that not feel good? Is that not considered, how should I say this? A guilty pleasure, indulgence in doing something that was worthwhile. Okay? Indulgence is perhaps one of the oldest sins according to the church. Okay? Like pride, forgetfulness of past orthodoxies, ego, pride. The They consider that the most, how should I say this, the killers of the soul. But guess what? What if I told you that if you went out and you wanted to understand what it's like to be a priest or a priestess, I could guide you to some of the oldest known cultures in that field. Why? Because I've already studied that. And I can give you that little bit of tidbits like the Shem priesthood or the Hashishin. How about the Knights of Templar? How about the original Illuminati of the 15th century, who were more agnostic? They were the earliest forms of agnostics, if you think about it. They worked to prove the universe's will through science, but also through witchcraft and sorcery, not just religious faith. You look at the Hashishin, 6th century to the 12th century. They were highly feared in the Middle East. Modern day Pakistan, okay? They had castles, much like the Knights of Templar. They had money, knowledge. They had the knowledge of the anatomy. The best way to eliminate someone, they were known as assassins, literally assassins. And in Arabic, it is known as simsara. Okay, an assassin's name. The term assassin means simsara. Okay, in Arabic, that's what it's translated as. Now, what's interesting is when you get into the knowledge of what the Hashishin represented, it was about knowledge. They were holy men and women dedicated to religious studies, philosophy, but they were also highly trained in, say, for an example, anatomy, assassinations, combat, and they kept the peace throughout the Muslim world. It didn't matter what country, as we call it today. They had temples in just about every one of these Arabic nations, from Pakistan, Afghanistan, um, Iraq, Kuwait, all the way down into Giza. Ironic how that works, right? Then you have the Knights of Templar. The Knights of Templar were the personal army of the church. They were holy men, religious monks who were trained highly in combat. They were known throughout Europe and the Middle East as protectors of the roads. Protectors of the roads. Ironic, isn't it? But yet, if you go all the way back to the first, second, and third dynasty of Egypt, you have what is known as the Shem priesthood. That is SEM priesthood. This priesthood had different levels of ministry who were responsible for different aspects of the faith. One did nothing more than religious worship. One was responsible for making sure the temple was clean. Another one was to deal with the people, the masses. Another one, most likely the upper levels, if you will, was responsible for negotiations, rituals, and stuff like that, such as mummification, cleansing, mortician type stuff, but also the reading and understanding of the mystical languages, such as the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Okay? So there is a lot of knowledge out there that you got to go seek out. And when you start from, say, for example, the Shem priesthood, you tend to start going all the way up into Europe. And before long, you realize, wow, Christianity is not the only priesthood around. There's priesthoods that have come long before them. Before the JCI, there was, well, Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism was one of the biggest religions out there before that time, before the mainstream Christian apocalypse, if you will, their hostile takeover. They dealt with Ahura Mazda and Ahriman. Okay, both had priests, priestesses that served their gods. You go back even further, you go into the Necronomicon, and you have the priesthood of Cthulhu. Okay, Cthulhu. Now think about washing up on a beach, going into the woods or the jungle, and you work your way up to a mountain, if you will, and all of a sudden you see people dressed in robes, black robes, chanting in a language you've never even heard of. Just imagine that. Aren't you going to be freaked out? And then they see you and they chase you, but yet they disappear. And by the time you realize they're not following you, they're already gone. You witnessed an augulist rise from the ground to where these priesthoods were chanting to. Did you ever wonder why they were doing that? What was the purpose behind it? How about the dead names? How about the various different species of the old ones? And then you go into African tribals. The practitioners of witchcraft, sorcery, today is known as voodoo. Depending on where you are in the world, especially in Africa, if you're in the Congo regions, you're looking at Quimbanda. You're looking at Pedo Mayumbi and Pedo Monte. You're looking at voodoo if you're going into Malaysia, or not Malaysia, but Malawi, Ethiopia, and Ghana, Nigeria, even. Okay. So you're dealing with different religious perspectives that have coexisted with priests and priestesses. And a lot of these priests, these medicine men and women, their huts were literally right next to the king of that village. So you had the king, the elder, the ruler of that village, his hut, his teepee, if you will, if we're talking Native American. Now, what's interesting is that hut is for that practitioner is right next door, and not one thing is done without first consulting that practitioner. It doesn't matter if it's an execution. It doesn't matter if it's a hunting trip. It did not matter if it was going to war. They always consulted the practitioner. You go up into European traditions. Now you're getting into the witch, the warlock, the shaman. People went to shamans, and their huts were normally out just outside of the village, if not out in the boondocks, to like that of, say, Baba Yaga, if you're getting into Slavic mythology. But here's the thing, they always went to these practitioners. Ironic, isn't it? So they were basically the priests and priestesses of their time. They kept the knowledge, the medicine, the knowledge of the herbs, the plants, the the ritualistic spiritualism. They even performed the marriages. Hmm. Until Christianity came on scene, and now they're the bad guys. But people have forgotten that if you go back to the earliest forms in Europe, they were known as the Hexa. That's Haxa. You get into the Strega, okay, which is Strega, okay. Go into African based religions, and you have the Eshi, Eshi, the Aji, Aje, okay. Even if you get into the Stragoi, you can Google that name. I'm not going to spell everything for you. You're going to see a ruling class to where the mainstream populace always went to them. If you go into the Hexa, for an example, about 75% were women. So obviously they were known as witches. The other 25% were men. They were warlocks. But as Christianity came up, guess what? The term priest, the name for that priest, for the priesthood, was different. Even priestesses had their place in society, going from Greece to Rome, all the way down into Africa. And as religious philosophies separated and were conquered and died off because of the conflicts, guess what? Now you have Eastern and Western philosophies involved, different perspectives. You have the Catholics, the Roman Catholics, mainstream Catholicism, and so forth. And every one of these is like a disease popping up with their own brand. Even when you get into all these modern day religions, a lot of them are just made up. See, that's why I like the temple that I'm associated with, because it's based off truth, it's based off facts, it's about knowledge, and you have to back it up with references. So when you get into certain things like alchemy, the point of alchemy is to break things down to its most basic, simplistic chemicals, its properties. And only then can you recreate it into something new. Let's take let's take gunpowder for an example. Let's take gunpowder. Let's take bullets. What do you know about bullets? How do you make gunpowder? Hmm? Does anybody know? I do. Why? Because I've studied it. I studied its compounds. Today, you have to go to a store. You have to have a license saying, hey, I have a right, according to the Second Amendment, to own a gun. But here's the thing. You purchase the bullets already made. You have a company that's responsible for making bullets of various different calibers. But that knowledge is only limited to those who make it. What if I told you that the secret is very simplistic and it's things you can find just about anywhere? Charcoal, number one. Coal, the basic things that you use when you're grilling outside. Put them in, you light them, right? Very simplistic, right? Wow. Okay. Let's go to the grocery store. Okay, you've already found your bag of charcoal. Let's go into the herb aisle. Oh, look, you have salt. Salt. Ooh, okay. Let's go out and get sulfur. Sulfur. 3 key ingredients. Now mix them together. Now you got gunpowder. You see, knowledge is good. Knowledge is awesome. And it sets you apart from the dross. So when I did that video yesterday on bettering yourself, it's always better to better yourself, to elevate yourself through knowledge, wisdom, self-understanding. And the funny thing is, not many people are willing to do that. As I said with this guy down the road, he dresses like a bum, but that's an insult to those who are homeless. Because unlike them, a lot of them don't have a choice. A lot of it is mental illness, not just those who are sick of society, the legal system, and all that stuff, and they just go off on their own because they don't want that responsibility of having to pay for rent. They don't want to work for a home or electric bills and stuff like that, because now it's become a leech effect. Psychic vampirism is what they call it, and it's draining you. So some of these people, they find it better to just go out and camp, to live off the land like in the old days, rather than to live in a society that is based off greed. They don't give a shit about you, so why should you give a shit about them? So what you do is, instead of using a religion and hiding behind that religion, why don't you go out and actually better yourself? You know what I'm saying? Looking for that next big knowledge, hungering for it, thirsting for it. Okay? Think of it like this. When I first got into necromancy, and I didn't really take it serious, it was more like a dabbling effect. But when I became a necromancer full time, about 4 to 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I think it's been now, when I first delved back into necromancy, and it's been, roughly about 4 years. I delved into it on a serious level. I spent a year just studying necromancy. Homework after homework was given to me. I spent 6 months to a year without even an instructor, without even a teacher. But I proved myself to these elders, saying, hey, I'm serious about this. I want to learn about necromancy. I want to learn about death and dying. So I didn't just... My legs are falling asleep here, so I apologize. I didn't just study the gods and the myths and what necromancy was. I went into a whole wide range of things. I looked at it. Okay, I went into the medical practices. I went into from the early 17th, 18th centuries, where they use ice water to kill off brain cells. Now you've got electric shock therapy. You know, you got CPR, which used to be to resuscitate someone. Now you have this little device that you can shock somebody back into the rhythm, the correct rhythm, you know, and jumpstart their heart. And it's interesting to see because now you're getting into, okay, you take it a step forward. From there, all right, let's go into notaries. Okay, what is a notary? Okay, notary is a church personnel, at least in the old days, that basically their responsibility was to notify friends and family in the village, hey, somebody has died, right? Well, what if I told you that what came before that was called necrology? Necrology is a study of death and dying, and this is where you are notarizing somebody, in like a modern day obituary, if you will, saying, "Hey, these people have passed on." Okay. Well, let's take it a step forward. Let's look into thanatology. Well, thanatology came out around 1907 area. Didn't become popular until roughly around 1974 area. And now it's considered to be an average practice in the medical community where very few people actually study it. Most people don't even know it's been in the field of medical practice for 20, 30 years and they've never even heard of thanatology. When I went to work for Winterberry Heights for the year, roughly a little over a year. No, actually, it was just about a year. Yeah, just about a year. Yeah. Um, I decided to go back to school and become a thanatologist. I started checking into all these different schools that offered this course. I even went to my HR personnel at the time and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about going back to school and I want to get into this field, because I didn't just go to the HR. I also went to the second in command of the facility, and I said, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. You know, um, do you guys pay for education? Do you help with educational payments and stuff like that?" And they had no idea what thanatology was. You had to have a DA, a dietary aid, explain to these medical personnel who's been in the field for 25, 30 years on what this practice was. They had no fucking clue. And it's funny because when you go to other places and you mention thanatology, no one fucking knows. You go to a hospital like an ER, you go to you go to the cardiac unit, you go to one of these triage places like a clinic. Nobody has a fucking clue what thanatology is. This is how far knowledge has been watered down in today's society for you to believe this horse shit that is called knowledge today. No one has a fucking clue. They don't want to know, which is why I'm always telling you guys do it for yourselves. Whatever you preach, always back it up. Always make yourself available to the public. This is why I tell you guys this. Excuse me, Missy, but I am doing a video. Can you come back later? I'll get that belly? No? Okay. Then I'll do it now. So this is Black Magic. Um, she's one of the four cats that I have, and a dog. Boop. This one's was the runt of the litter at the time. One sweetie. So sometimes they just like attention, which is okay. Um, so, anyways, so I finally got into a school last fall after my mother's heart attack, triple bypass, and I was informed to you have to have a PhD to get into thanatology. Now, because I've never gone to college, guess what? I have to start at a bachelor degree. Okay. Now, I chose psychology because psychology is part of thanatology. There's like 12 different practices that are associated with thanatology, and psychology is one of them. Okay. Because it deals with counseling. Okay. Now, some others are things like hospice in today's society. Okay. CNA work, modern day RAs, resident assistants. Okay. But there's a lot of other things that go into it. And there was a couple minor courses that could be taken under that as well. So I chose, because I'm already well versed in Christian views, I chose Christian theology and criminal justice, okay, as my minors. And psychology was the major. Okay. So it really works out great in that aspect because now I'm pursuing the legal system. I'm pursuing religious based studies. Okay. Still, doesn't matter what philosophy it is. And on top of that, I'm learning psychology. Okay. But I've also had books recommended to me for personalized based study. Okay. In witchcraft, one of the things that's in the witch's creed is known as to know. Okay. The number one thing, know thyself, is what they modern day pagans and Wiccans normally refer to it as. And this little guy behind me, wait, where is it? Right there. Um, this is T-Bone, Adamir Tybon. So let's say, for an example, I want to find out what's going on with him because he's being aggressive. And lately, he has been aggressive towards Opal, our Siberian Husky, the newest addition to our family. Okay, and it's funny because he's nothing more than piss and vinegar, right? So he'll sit there and turn sideways and arch that back and kind of just look like Igor from Frankenstein, or Dracula, whichever one, because he was in both of them. So, and he gets that growling going, that low, deep, you know, hormonal tone, and it's like, all right, buddy, what's going on here? Why do you not like Opal? She has done nothing to you. She is more interested in you and trying to figure out who you are and getting to know you, but you're acting like a fucking bully. So let's talk about this. What's going on here? You know what I'm saying? So right there, you're counseling. Okay, you're looking at the aggression factor. You know, you're getting into the aggression factor with the tudes. Okay, so what's causing these attitudes? And one thing I've always told my son's mother is when you're looking at an animal like, say, a dog, they'll tell you when they have to go out. They'll tell you when they're hungry. They give off signs. They give off symptoms, if you will. So in basic psychology, you're actually understanding the behavior of an animal. And let's face it, humanity, we're just another form of animal. We're just more aware of it. Okay. Not just more brutal, if you will. So when you get into psychology, you're learning human behavior. Criminal behavior, or let's say, for example, your religious rights, you're learning about that. So again, you're seeking knowledge. In the last 2 years, I have studied the legal system from the federal laws down. And this is why. People, when you're an ordained minister, you go to, say, for example, the hospital, and you say, hey, who do I talk to become a minister here at the hospital, to be able to do ministry? For those who want to talk to a minister, Because we got so many different religions out there today. I'm a multi-faith minister. Well, guess what? Now you got one of these top Catholic dudes who sit there and go, well, you have to have over 1,000 hours. You have to have like 10,000 hours of street ministry. You have to have run a temple for, a church for more than 5 years. And you have to do this, you have had to do that, just making up excuses of why you can't begin. This is like going to a corporation and saying, hey, I'm applying for this position. What do you mean I'm not qualified for it? I just told you I'm doing everything already. Well, you don't have a college degree in it. Wow, really? Hmm. Why would I need a paper saying that I've graduated from a school when I'm already doing that work? I already have knowledge and experience there. It would be like trying to get a job, your first job, and nobody's hiring you because you don't have work experience. Well, here's the psychology behind that. How do you expect somebody to get experience if you don't give them the opportunity? You see the point there, right? That's the psychology of it. But in actuality, it's not about hiring somebody without, that expertise. People in fast food, like I work for Dunkin' Donuts part time, okay? And we hire people right out of high school. Hell, they're even in high school when they get part time jobs, okay? And I do that part time. Well, guess what? I'm now basically a shift leader, okay? I'm the primary baker. And I also teach there as well when the teachers aren't there or the upper management is busy. These newbies come to me and I explain to them how to do things. So you're basically teaching them your job, and they're going to teach the people below them theirs. See, that's how they get that knowledge. But when they come in, they have to sit there for 3, 4 hours in front of a computer before they even get out onto the floor so they can understand this is what my job is going to entail. Okay. But even then, they get out onto the floor and they're making drinks. The stickers already tell them this is what's in this. Okay. Here's the shot, the flavor shot. Here's the swirls, the creamer, the milks. Okay. Alternative milks down here. Ice, fill it up. Wow. Very complex, right? But when they get into espresso drinks, such as the cappuccino, the Americano, the latte, the macchiato, they're like, oh, how do I make this? Well, didn't you just watch that video? Didn't you just watch the videos on drink making? Hmm. Even those who have been there a month, 2 months even, still are having trouble with that because people aren't persistent with them. It is like training a dog that is full of stubbornness. Huskies are one of the most top 3 stubborn animals there are, and they can be trained, but you have to be persistent in that training. Okay. Now I recommend when they're young, you know, teach them obedience training, but as they're going. But that's just me. You know, when she's with her mama, well, that training goes out the window. But let's say, for an example, you want to become a shift lead. No one's giving you that opportunity because you're part time, right? Well, what if I told you that they're not? It's not the fact that they can't do it; it's the fact that they don't want to do it. So you have to get aggressive with them, and they want to see what you're willing to do. So you have to force their hand. So here's the psychology behind that. Remember when I mentioned learning criminal justice? Learn your religious laws, your religious rights. Look at the labor law. Um, the codes, the penal codes behind the labor laws. You go outside your management or in the employee lounge, they're right there. At the first Dunkin' I worked at, it was right outside the manager's office. I used to stand there and just look at it. I didn't really apply it to my life back then, but it was there, and then I went over to became a dietary aide and then went back to Dunkin'. Okay, so here it is. When you want something, you have to fight for it. So I went to my current manager and one of the former shift leaders is no longer there. And I went in, I spoke to the GM and I said, hey, you need to make me a shift lead, instead of promoting all these dumbasses that keep leaving once they're promoted. Well, they had just promoted this one guy. And guess what? He's no longer there. Again, an example from those who are dedicated compared to those who are not. Okay. Ironic how that happens, right? So they both looked at me and said, no, we can't do it because you're part time. Well, guess what? I turned around and I said, well, right there, you're in violation of the labor law, of equal rights, discrimination of this, and this. And guess what? One of the higher ups came in at that time and said, he's not wrong. Ooh, talk about a twisting, grabbing those cojones and just giving a big old yank and a twist at the same time. So you see, you have to fight for what you want and have to force it because no one else is going to. When you go into a store and you have a working dog, the greeters will sit there and go, is that a working dog? Do you not see the collar? Do you not see the tags? Do you not see the vest? Well, state of Maine law basically says that they're not permitted to ask. They're not permitted to ask. And if you say yes, well, what kind? Okay, let's go with an ESA, an emotional support animal. Well, guess what? That's not a part of it. That's what they'll argue. Well, guess what? It is a part of it. Wow. So, right there, you're not just in violation of equal rights, but you're also you're allowing other people with dogs in, but yet you're going to prevent somebody with an actual ESA or working dog. You got people coming in with dogs to train them, and you're allowing that, but you're going to stop somebody with an actual licensed ESA animal. Wow, talk about discrimination and segregation. Whew. Not mention the say for an example, those who are, if you have somebody that's on disability, that's underneath the labor laws violations right there. Okay, you're not supposed to. You cannot discriminate against somebody on SSI or SSDI. That's Social Security disability or Social Security income. You cannot do it. Well, guess what? My former manager, the guy that hired me, he was getting discriminated against bad. And I looked right at him and I shot him over a few things. And I said, why don't you hit them with that? Oh, they did not like that one fucking bit. So here we are playing Psychology 101. You want to fuck with him? You want to fuck with me? Guess what? This is the legal rights that we have. We're going to put you in your place. So right there, you're playing Psychology 101 of playing fuck games with people's minds. God, I love manipulation. I love it. Oh, fuck. So yeah. So you have to seek out that knowledge. You got to be the one to go, I'm done with this bullshit of today. I want to go into this on a serious, dedicated, complete fealty to these religions, to these practices, and go, I'll take what you say with a grain of salt, but I'm going to do my own research into these practices. Wow. Imagine how much you're going to prosper just by doing that alone. Extreme isolation is always a good thing. And you know what? It makes you stronger. It makes you stronger. It gives you the self-motivation and confidence to do what is necessary. So when I'm asked, why do you want to be a devil worshiper? I'm not a devil worshiper. I'm a practitioner of the arts. Do I work with demons? Do I work with the Devi? Do I work with the Orisha? Do I work with the Loa? Yeah. But you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay? So when you got a guy down the street here asking all these questions and trying to force his will on you, just let them blow off their little tantrums. Show the world who they really are. And then you can put them in their place because you know the religious doctrines, because you've studied them. You've understood the religious theology behind it. You understand where they're coming from. Okay? For an example, the sons and daughters of Belial came from the Dead Sea Scrolls, the scroll of Amrit. You have the 3 days that Jesus was supposedly in hell, okay, after the crucifixion. Well, that was the poetical text going back in the 16th, 17th century. Ooh. Okay, so basically, the Bible that you go by is nothing more than a load of horseshit, stolen from much older religions, texts, and sources. But you're going to think it's a doctrine for your God? No, it's not. That's just stolen material, corrupted material. That's all it is. I'd rather do what I do. One of the biggest questions is how do you prosper? How does the devil prosper you? Working with the devil, how does that prosper you? Well, let's see. I became an ordained archbishop. I've earned a doctorate of divinity. I'm studying psychology. I drive around in a 2016 Kia Sorento, fully loaded. Yes, it's currently in the shop getting repairs done because a deer ran out in front of me, and you know, you know how that works. For such a little thing, it literally does a lot of damage, but still, it's there. And on top of that, I've educated myself on a lot of things. I've moved up into a good position at my job. I'm respected by upper management, not just my fellow coworkers. Top of that, I'm known worldwide because of what I do here. I've got a good standing with various different religions because I back up what I preach. I don't just practice it, I also teach it. I give you those scraps so that you can go out and learn for yourself. So you're not learning the hard way like I did, trying to make your lives a little bit easier. So, yes, when you get in there and you start getting on that serious level, seeking out that knowledge, you're going to be moving from a dabbler in a neophyte position into an adept of the arts. And from there, you're going to move your way up and make a lifestyle. You're going to be applying everything to your life, and you'll be better off because you'll have the tools necessary to stand on your own 2 feet, which is basically what a parent is supposed to do for their child. And let's face it, when we're talking occultism, there's always that teacher, that master, and that apprentice, that student. So we all learn. We don't stop learning. Just because we've mastered one topic doesn't mean there's not different layers of that same topic. Hence why I gave you that depiction of an onion. Peel that top layer off, and you have a whole nother layer underneath it. Keep going, because you're going to be studying all the way up until you move on to the next world, till you die and go on to the next world, the next realm, and then so forth and so forth and so forth. If you think this world is hell now, wait until you get into the next world. And you're going to see that what you've been dealing with here is quite minor. in comparison. This world is preparing you for that next world. There's conflicts across the multiverses. There are various different species that you can work with, learn from. But you got to be the one to step foot in that. So, uh, Twilight Sun animism. Let's see what you were writing here. Sorry, I saw you pop in a while back. I just wanted to get this thought out of my head before I reply to you. Let's see. Blessings to you too. Not just that, but it was also Stoicism too. I mean, if you look at how ministers in Christianity act today, they literally try to hold themselves above everyone else as being superior. That's Stoicism. Being better at a superior mind state than everyone else. They think they're more holy, if you will. So it's not just being influenced by Zoroastrianism. There's a lot of different cultures that go back thousands of years before that. Like I said, I've traced necromancy back to the 6th century BC, before Christ. And that's just through my own study and practice. Let's see. Exactly. And that's basically what they did, because in the old days, when going to a witch or a warlock, they did everything. They had even Christopher Penziak, if you get into his temple series, the Temple of Outer Witchcraft, the Temple of Inner Witchcraft, the Temple of Shamanic Witchcraft, the Temple of High Witchcraft, the Temple of Living Witchcraft, the God, Volume 1, and then you have Volume 2, which is the Goddess. You're going to see a wide range of history just there alone. I mean, yeah, he has his own perspectives and practices, but it's interesting how it's not just Christopher Penziak that has put this history in. It's also people like Christian Day, the modern day warlock, through his Witch's Book of the Dead. You have Lucifer Raphael, Necromancy, the Forbidden Rites. It's there, the history. And I mean, even if you get into Patricia and Lionel Fanthorpe's work, demonolatry and Satanism, for an example, you're going to go back through anthropology, archaeology, and everything, going back hundreds of thousands of years, showing that demonolatry and angelology is just different perspectives throughout the eras, the eons even. So you're going to be seeing how all these cultures have had their own ideals of what it is and how it's been taken, warped, and recreated through warfare and conflicts, because the victors are the ones that tell the story. So you have to go back through history and get closer and closer to that truth. It's like men being the ruler of the household. If you actually trace that back, the earliest mention and the only area that actually spoke on that was proto Italian culture. It actually goes back proto Rome, Roman Empire. And it was a village just kind of a northeastern from Rome itself. They actually believed that a man ruled over a woman and a woman had to be submissive to her husband. Take the biggest thing today with women, the thing that I'm still seeing online, like on TikTok and Facebook. You still got people talking about how the government and the legal systems are violating women's rights to control their own bodies. And they're still bitching about this. And it's since they got rid of the Roe versus Wade Act. And it's like, guys, ladies, go into the 1010-117 Congress Act and in titles A and B, you will see exactly what the Constitution says about this. Number one, it says that a woman has the right to conceive or not to conceive. That basically means termination of a unborn, a fetus, based on safety and health, and basically mental health, safety, and overall health. Okay, so she has a right to either conceive or not to conceive. Okay. Second of all, if you go into part B, it clearly says that no government institution, that means presidency, that means the Democrats, it means the DOD, the JO, the DOJ, the FBI, all of those going all the way down into the judges and all that stuff. They cannot interfere because of this act, but yet they're doing that, which means they're in violation of this code, this penal code. Okay. So, and I did a video on this. I did a video on this a couple of days after it happened because I watched the internet just blow up. And it wasn't just that. I mean, every time you turned on the news, every time I went to my mother's or I went to a friend's house, I went to work even, everybody was talking about it. And it's like, why don't you go underneath this and you learn it? You'd be surprised what you're able to do just through the legal system alone. So basically, compartmentalization is breaking things down into sections. Shamans, witches, warlocks, necromancers, we used to do all this stuff on ourselves because we had the knowledge. We spent all our time learning this stuff. But over time, as cultures grew, civilizations were established. Now you have different workforce codes, penal codes. Now you have different work force jobs, and instead of them all applying underneath one faction, like say psychology, you know, thanatology, let's go mortician or priesthood or whatever. Guess what? Now you have to have a piece of paper to do this type of job. Otherwise, it's illegal. Hmm, really. I'm in a medical group on Facebook. And it's interesting because I posted something on catnip tea. And I mean, a lot of these women just gang banged it, like literally just swarmed it like a fire ants trying to eat a piece of meat or something. And it was funny because of the fact that I looked right at him and I said, "Really, where's your source?" We hear all the time about alternative medications and stuff like this. Hmm. Even in medical professionals have talked about alternative medicines that could possibly help the human body. I mean, one of the go-tos for me happens to be Chinese medicine. They got some shit over there that just you don't have in any other parts of the world. So here we are talking about this. And I went back into paganism. I brought up multiple different herbalism books, went into various different other practices books from witchcraft, Wiccan, paganism practices, herbalism practices. And I said, all of these things have been proven throughout the last 500 to 1,000 years. It's been used between Native American traditions to medicine men and shamanism. So your medical gnosis is a bullshit lie. Where do you get this stuff? Where do you think this stuff comes from? Modern day society only wants to write a prescription and keep you drugged up. You're contaminated with synthetic medications grown in a petri dish. People have forgotten the natural stuff. And this is because they have broken down each division. You got pharmaceuticals, pharmacists. They're the only ones that can actually prescribe you these medications. You got laws stating that if you go to a dealer, it's considered illegal and you can get arrested with a felony charge because they want to force your hands into applying to this system. Wow. Okay. But yet they want to sit here and give you the medication for, say, cholesterol lowering. Well, let's see. Garlic, hmm, turmeric, and ginger all do the same thing. Wow. Okay. Cleaning out the kidneys and the gallbladder. Okay. Let's go with lemon juice. Hmm. Okay. But yet you want to prescribe these synthetic drugs that do more damage than good. They have all these warnings and all these side effects. Huh. Okay. Well, right there, you see the arrogance behind it and the purpose behind it because they're the only ones that you can go to get a prescription for toothache or, say, for an example, joint pain or whatever. You have to get checked out by a licensed physician. Okay. So they did break down everything into even further into subdivisions, segregation, even because now you have all these different divisions that are responsible for certain things. When in actuality, they originally were one house. People just have forgotten that. So, yes, that's actually true. Precisely. I concur with that 100% because it means they have to pull their head out of the proverbial sandbox and actually take responsibility for their own life. Ironically, psychology. Exactly. And you got so many of those on today. There's so many. And I can't tell you how many videos I've shown just on this channel of me doing rituals. Most of which without sound, but there are a few with sound. So I mean, I back up what I preach, and I try to get other people to do the same thing. One of my grimoires. You know what? Two grimoires, three grimoires, and I have a whole bunch more out on a shelf. Just over 35 years of practice. Hell, I have a three-ring binder just over the last 6 years of intense research into necromancy. My 7 essays that I've done and printed off are in that. So guess what? It's there. Yeah, we refer to them as sheeple, the sheeps versus the wolves, if you will. But idiot works. Idiots. Yep, that actually works. Basically, yeah, I concur with that. Keep to yourself. Do you do, and then if somebody makes it personal, then yeah, destroy them. But I actually like sitting there and letting people just run their mouth, and you learn more about them. That's just my way. But everybody has their own way. So true. I concur with that too. Teach what you know, and they in return add to it and teach what they know, expanding on what's already been built upon that tower. Yep, that I concur. Everything has been watered down. Now they're taking books out of the libraries at schools. You should see the math problems that they're teaching first graders. It's ridiculous. And no wonder the kids are like, fuck you, teachers. So yeah, I concur with that fully. So yeah, so whatever you preach, always back it up with numerous sources, and don't be afraid to delve into that knowledge. Seek it out at all costs. If you have to sacrifice things, like stop hanging out with friends or just turn off your phone and hang out at the library just reading, in a dark semi-dark corner, do it. Even if you have to lock yourself into one of those conference rooms there on one of the floors, do it so that you don't have those distractions. Like I said yesterday in the video, a wise elder of mine once said, think of it as a marathon and not a race. Because if you want to be the hare, you're going to lose to a tortoise. You're going to get to the end, you're not going to be any wiser for it. You're not going to learn anything. But if you're thinking of it at the journey as a marathon, you're literally going to learn and take great pleasure in the journey. You're going to benefit, and your life is going to prosper because of it. Hence why I said yesterday, I would rather work with demons and devils than to go to church and serve on my knees like a fucking slave. Because I don't like sitting around doing nothing. I cannot stand sitting down doing nothing. I've got to continue reading. I've got to continue pushing forward. I'm an Aries, so I'm a fighter. I love to fight. And one of the things that has happened over the last few years is that shift for me where I've pulled away from society, and it's like nothing there interests me anymore. It's just the same shit, just a different show. That's it. So why not make it about you? Why not just do you? You know what I'm saying? It's you seeking out the knowledge, not someone else. You want to better your life? No one else is going to do that for you. You have to forge your own path. That means you have to take a good, strong look at your life, at your practices. And then you've got to use the alchemy symbol, if you will, the alchemy agenda, and break the shit down to its most basic components and then restructure it into a formula that's going to work and benefit you and your family. That's it. That's all it is. So it doesn't matter if you have alcohol in a chalice that's turned hard. It doesn't matter if you have a coffee cup with stains. Okay. It doesn't matter if you are creating a phylactery, such as an amulet, a talisman. It doesn't matter if you're making gunpowder. It doesn't matter if you're making black salt or black sand. It doesn't matter if you're making gopher dust or zombie powder. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're making elixirs or oleums. Alchemy is one of the most basic prime practices of any path in occultism throughout the world. Not just that, but religions worldwide. I mean, look at how the the ancient Roman Catholics used to make candles with honey, honey and sap and a few other things just to make that wax. You can actually Google that and look that up. It's amazing that the entire thing. I highly recommend it. But it's there. But you got to be true to yourself. You got to be you. You can't get into a fad. You can't get mixed up into dramas because that's just no good for you. It's like trying to teach your son right from wrong. You know, my son hates coming to my house, but he'll come to it every so often because of the fact that he wants to be around daddy. Well, guess what? When he's at daddy's house, he don't get TV. He don't get that phone to watch his little YouTube channel or Netflix. I give him a nighttime movie, yes, and I let him watch some TV while we're in the car, but that's about it. Probably about maybe an hour a day. The rest of the time, He's either out on the trails with me, he's playing with the dog or the cats, or he's playing with his toys. Things that will benefit him in the long run. I even take him to the park so that he can run, race, get the exercise he needs, and play with other kids. So he gets that socialization skills. I sit there and I help him with his homework when I can actually figure that shit out. But let's face it, the shit that they're teaching today in school is fucking for the birds. They fuck that shit up so bad. It's, I mean, why the fuck would you teach a 6-year-old in first grade? It doesn't matter if you're 6 or 7 years old in first grade. Why the fuck would you teach a kid that young algebra when they haven't even learned the basics of multiplication, times table, division, fractions, even? I mean, they're just starting and adding and subtracting, and all of a sudden you're going to give them algebra, and they call it power thinking. No, that's for the fucking birds. But yeah, so it is up to you on what you want to do. It is up to you. It is your path, your right to learn. You have a right to study whatever the fuck you want to study, and basically tell everybody else to piss the fuck off. So that's on you. You know what I'm saying? My two creeds that I try to put on you and get you to follow is whatever you preach, back it up with multiple sources, and always make yourself available to the public, because you are responsible for the things that you do and say. You back everything up with numerous sources, and you even show videos of it. And I've actually shown you videos of me creating things such as phylacteries and powders. And guess what? It's there. I backed it up. I've done my research, and I know that you will too. That's if you're true to your path and you want to make it a lifestyle. It's not just a sometime thing or a full part-time thing. It's a full-time life practicing event. It's a career. It literally is your life. And only you can decide how far you want to take it. Yeah, the thing that I think, and this is one of the things that I've spoken with his mom is, and we actually agree on this. Even though when he goes into my temple, when I'm in there, he loves it. And I mean, she takes him to church. He'll basically either fall asleep and just sleep through the damn thing, or he's just like, I just want to leave. But sometimes he'll just sit there and do what needs to be done for like hour and a half to 2 hours, even if he's got that phone in his hand. But I would rather give him all the materials from various different religions, let him get a firm understanding and foundation under him, within all of them. And then when he comes of age, like say for an example, in Jewish culture, there's a little thing called bar mitzvah, and this is where you go from childhood into adulthood, and let him decide for himself what path he wants to follow, if any. You know what I'm saying? That's the way I look at it. So yeah, that's just me. I actually recommend homeschool. I really do, and I have been actually considering that with the way the school system is today. I really am. I mean, I know he wants to, do that stuff, socialize and make friends and all that stuff. But on the other hand, you got the school department saying, well, if he calls out a certain amount, you call out a certain amount of times, we're going to get the cops involved, and if we don't get the cops involved, it'll be CPS. Well, guess what? You don't have a right to do that, not legally. You can make an accusation. You can even get underneath there and say, hey, we need you to do a wellness check, but that's all you can do legally. Okay, you can't sit there and go to CPS. You can't go to the cops and go, hey, something's going on here. This kid is called out so many times. Wow. No, that's basically trying to force a parent to bring their kids to your school. Legally speaking, they cannot do that. So homeschooling is a right, and all you have to do is go to a school and have them tested so that you know where they are at. So, welcome to the United States Penal Codes. So, correct. Alchemy does not stop in the ritual room. Rituals do not stop in the ritual room. It's everywhere. That's why when I'm at work, I'm normally talking to my patrons and patronesses. I'm normally, praying to them. When I'm there by myself, I do it out loud, but because I know there's no audio, but at the same, there's just visual. But at the same time, when there's somebody there, I normally just do it in my head, just thinking about it, because either way, they hear you. And they'll make a big deal out of it and say, well, it's religious discrimination. Really? Where's the discrimination? Somebody's getting butthurt because you believe something else. Ooh, well, that's on them. It says more about them than it does about you. You want to go against the First Amendment? Go for it. See you in a court of law. Correct. So, and that's the way I look at it. So, I'm going to get off here and go back to doing what I've been doing. All right. But I wanted to put that out there and have you guys think about everything you do as an alchemical practice. Seeking knowledge is a good thing. Knowledge seeking is a good thing. How do you learn if you do not ask the question? And if you do not ask the question, how do you expect to get the answer? Alchemy is a very good thing, and it's one of the oldest traditions out there. Look into it, practice it. And I guarantee it, a little thing such as alcohol becoming hard in a chalice is going to be something so trivial that it's like, well, all this time on the internet trying to find this answer, going underneath group after group after group, going, hey, how do I do this? How do I get rid of this? How do I break it down? How do I do this? Well, let's see. Alchemy, you're dealing with sugar components. How do I separate that sugar component? Just like you would within a job. How do I separate myself from the herd to get recognized by the elders of the facility? I apply it to myself, to my life. So I would add salt to separate that sugary components from the actual wine or the alcoholic beverage. I would separate myself by adding that salt to that wound and separating myself from the herd to go up and go, hey, this is what I want, this is my aim, and I'm willing to work for it. I'm willing to do what is necessary to do it. It would be like trying. A lot of kids today they get into the mindset of wow, of envious nature and say, well, this person, all these people are dating. I want to date. Well, okay, what is your long term, your long term goals there with this partner that you end up asking out? If they say yes, how do you plan on what's your next step in that area? You see, goals go along with note taking. Note taking creates knowledge. Socialization within these aspects, in these planes, literally open up the doors for multiplication. So you're literally adding to your knowledge. So as a wise man once said, to get a girlfriend, you have to have a home. You have to have a job because you got to pay for her. Okay. Number two, you have to have a transportation. Number three, you have to have a place to reside, especially if you plan on marrying that person. And if you plan on having kids, how do you provide for them if you don't work? I mean, hell, even the Bible has a scripture in the New Testament that says that if you don't work, you don't eat. Whew, imagine that. Now look at the world. Look at the world. How many homeless are out there right now, begging at street corners? Within about 5 yards from them, there's at least a half a dozen stores looking to hire somebody that wants to work. Do you know why the interviewing processes are the way they are? It's because they want to separate the true from the fake. And sometimes it's a guessing game. They want to benefit their company. And to do that, they need strong willed individuals who are responsible and reliable, somebody that can actually learn. But a lot of times, when you get somebody that doesn't have that, that experience, they can forge them in their own image. Do you remember in the New Testament or the Old Testament where it says God created man and woman in his image? Think about that for just a moment. And yes, I'm bringing in Christian theology here, not just the Bible. Well, think about it like this. You're a teacher. You are responsible for teaching your student a foundation of practices that will benefit them in the long run down the road when they're able to master the tradition that they're in. So, how do you teach a child right from wrong from the get go? If you see them doing something that you know would harm them, you would say, no, buddy, no, that's danger, right? Okay. But what if you took that child by the hand and you taught them, say, for an example, you toss a coin at a power line, or how about a electric fence, to show them the reaction and the reaction of that event. And they see that spark, that arc, as metal hits that wire, as that current is going through it. What if you hooked up a battery to, say, for an example, a wheel, and you utilize wires with copper tubing, and you put in, say, for an example, connectors to, let's say, for an example, create a little light bulb fixture. So you screw in the light bulb and you flick that switch, and all you're doing is utilizing a small little fan, battery operated fan, that is creating that arc, that electrical current, and it is creating light. Hmm. Interesting how science can do this. So, again, you have to seek out that knowledge, you have to experiment with it. So, alchemy would be the practice that you would go to in just about any practice out there, any job description. And you're going to teach them as a master to an apprentice. You're going to teach them like a parent to a child, okay, or an employer to an employee. It is a responsibility, but it's also a bond that is undeniable, and it makes you kin. Femi, hello, welcome to the channel. Well, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So, but yeah, that's what I recommend to you is never stop learning. Keep seeking out that knowledge. Okay? You will be better off for it. I mean, it's okay to ask questions, and the only stupid question is the one not answered, not asked. If you don't ask the question, how do you expect to get the answer? You know? And if you don't apply what you're reading and what you're studying to your life, how do you expect to find results? Do you even have a plan? Do you even have goals? How do you reach those goals if you don't have a plan to actually achieve that goal? Okay. What are you willing to do or to sacrifice to achieve those goals? Okay. You want to be a master magician? You want to be a warlock, a witch, necromancer? You want to become an archlick? You want to become a master necromancer? You want to become a shaman? You want to become a teacher? You want to run a temple or a church? Well, guess what? You got to earn it. You got to earn it. You can't sit on your ass and do nothing. You can't have everything, handed to you on a golden platter. Because if you did that, you wouldn't learn anything. That's why I do what I do, because I'm giving you sources, I'm giving you references for you to go check out. You take it from there and you add to it. All of a sudden, you have doctrine. First Amendment, you have doctrine. Okay? When you become bold enough, you go out and get a following. Whew, okay. Now you have disciples. Then you build a church, a temple, a coven. Now you got a foundation. And guess what? Now your practices falls underneath a protected religion. Ooh, legal codes, federal codes, right there. Boom. Okay. Next thing you know, the light bulb comes on, and you're like, okay, now what are my legal rights? Okay, 1967 Civil Rights Act titles V1 and VII. You got the Religious Land Use and Personalized Religious Acts. You got the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Knowing the difference between federal law, state law, borough laws. Okay, and this goes all the way back to the blue laws of the 17th century. Okay, wow. Okay, now I have my legal rights understood. Okay, now my coven, my temple, my religion is protected. I know all the rights. My students know all their rights. You're passing everything down. You're learning as you go, but at the same time you're evolving. And a lot of people don't take that moment to reflect and go, wow, the last 2 years, or hell, let's go with the last year alone. I mean, I started, the last year I've done all this. I've gained a clientele. I have students. One student becomes my business partner. I've moved up in my workplace. I got people coming to me asking for interviews because they want to interview me. I become recognized. Okay. All of a sudden, the next thing you know, wow, I'm viewed as an elder in the community. You see, the different stages from beginner to expert is done over time. You see, Femi, you may not know how to really explain what you do, but eventually you're going to get a working philosophy, if you will, together. And before long, you're going to have doctrine, you're going to have a practice, a grimoire. And when you get that grimoire and you start teaching, it doesn't matter. Let me put it to you this way: it doesn't matter if you live in your parents' basement. It doesn't matter if you live out in the boondocks in a tent. Okay? It doesn't matter if you are a rich, celebrity. It doesn't matter if you're poor or a working class. I work part time. I also do my ministry part time. But I've also gotten to the point where I don't need the world's bullshit in my life. I don't need that drama in my life. I'm concentrating solely on me. And by doing me, I'm also realizing that I'm guiding somebody else. Because I've had people come to me and go, hey, what do you recommend for this? And without even thinking about it, it's like, oh, I recommend this, this, and this. Okay, you just took the situation, put it on the back burner, and said, screw you. And you just started helping other people. Now you're developing a fan base. Now you're developing students. And before long, you're going to have a reputation where people are going to come to you and seek you out for your wisdom, your knowledge. And you're going to sit there and go, wow, um, why did I make all those excuses about this situation? Or why I couldn't do this, that, and that, this, that, and whatever. Why did I limit myself for so long? You see what I mean? Eventually, you're going to have all this stuff. You may not have it now, and it may look like you can't do it. And I don't know your situation, and I don't claim to. But what I can tell you is, speaking from personal experience, and years ago, I guess you could say I was envious of other people because they had relationships. I was always alone. Okay. I was a caretaker. I was literally alone in my life. Everybody else had families. My entire class, everybody from my class were friends. They had different circles, of course, but most of them, some of them died off. And you see this throughout the world, and it pisses you off. And a lot of the times when you get that level of rage, it hinders you, and you become vengeance. You become vile in nature, and people see that. So, in this case, you said you're a caretaker of your son. Okay. Well, what if I told you that what if I told you that if you got into alternative medicines, look into oh, I actually have some books here. The first one is The Dragon Image in Demons by Hampton C. Dubus. Okay. This one here talks a lot about the world's mythology and folklore and stuff, but different things from herbalism and stuff like that. But A Tooth from the Tiger's Mouth. Okay. I recommend this one because it deals with alternative medicines. And this was actually Tom Bezio who wrote this. And it deals with everything from spinal cord to stretching joints and all that stuff. Um, Message for sports injuries, okay? Things for hearing, okay? Things for muscle growth and stimulation, things for hand injuries, okay? Let me show you, okay? It's even got photos and depictions in here. Um, Legs, even. Let me see right there, okay? Compared to the hands, okay? Throughout this book, it literally will tell you things about back pain, forearm pains, stretching, things that will are considered to be alternative medicines. There are herbs and plants out there that will benefit you in that area, especially in your son if you seek them out. I know somebody that was completely bedridden, and this individual has told this story numerous times on his page. And some people held that against him in some aspects, but the thing is that he went from being bedridden, not expected to survive, to being a master necromancer, a master occultist, and he elevated himself to this position through sorcery, through magic, through herbalism. He did whatever he had to do to find those answers. And he did that through alchemy. Okay? And trust me, it may sound diverse, it may sound putrid, may even sound sci-fi even. But when I tell you that it actually works, because I took his example for myself, because I've had a severe subscapular strain and sprain, which resulted in upper back nerve pain. Okay. It shut off the flow of the nervous system in the upper back because of all the swelling, and it took place over 6 months. To a dislocated shoulder, to which I went from lifting over 200 pounds with one arm. I couldn't even lift 3 pounds. I've had a partial torn ligament in my knee, and I had a carpenter nail go into the joint. Okay, so I dealt with a lot of different things. I've even got metal in my thumb today. Okay, full rotation, but that's as far as I can bend this knuckle here. Okay. Now, a lot of people have said that I am going to need knee replacements by the time I'm 40. Hell, I thought I would be dead by 40. Here I am halfway through my 40s and I'm still kicking and I'm still going. I didn't have friends growing up. I didn't have friends in my adulthood. I've had to fight for every scrap that I've gotten. I didn't have an easy life. And let's face it, the world is my enemy. But with that said, there were people that were in my life that helped guide me, that helped teach me, that shaped my world into what I am today. Okay? So knowing all this, Femi, you may not have a social life. Hell, I don't even have a social life. Partly because I'm also a celebrity, because of what I do here. People actually know this about me. People recognize me from alternative religions, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing? Can I get your autograph? Or can you teach me? Can you write for me or whatever?" I've even had atheists ask me if I'd pray for them. So it is there, but when you realize that socialism is just that, it is an excuse to be around other people. Okay, because society has deemed it necessary to be a part of society. You get all these circles, these different groups, but when it comes down to it, it literally means shit. Okay, it means nothing. When I'm not at work, when I'm at work, I look at it as I'm being paid to care about somebody. Okay, my customers, I'm being paid to give a shit about what you want. Okay, but when I'm at home, I'm a recluse. I love being by myself. I love being with my books. I love being in my ritual chamber. I love going out on trails. Just me. Yeah, now I have a dog that I take out. Okay, I associate with 4 cats. I'm happy as a fucking clam. I have a kid. I have a 6-year-old little boy that I take place, and I got to go pick him up out at his grandmother's house in a little bit here. But when you look at all of this, who gives a shit about the world? You want to benefit your life. You want to benefit your child's life. My advice is seek out that knowledge. Seek out that wisdom. Make a life for yourself if it matters to you, because it's not going to matter to anybody else. When I go to a nightclub or I go to a bar, I go out to a restaurant. Okay, for an example, about a week ago, I took my son and his mom out shopping. Got them haircuts. Went out and took them out to eat at a restaurant. Spent over like $150. I think I think the restaurant alone was like $103 because I gave a $20 tip to the waitress because she was the only one there. So I gave her a $20 tip. The actual meals and everything for the three of us came to $83, about 83, $84 area. But the point is that taking care of my family matters to me. And so I make it a priority. My religion and my philosophy matters to me. My practices matter to me. So I make it a priority. When you get into medical aspects, when you get into alternative medicines and practices, one thing that I've learned, and this is through years of physical therapy, okay, learning about joints, learning about muscle groups. This is something that the Chinese, and again, I recommend Chinese alternative medicines to you because it works. It's proven scientific fact. Okay, doesn't matter if it's acupuncture, doesn't matter if it's stretches, toning, strength training, working, getting the blood flowing through the veins, stimulating the muscle groups. There, these really do work. So, like I said, I can't say what is the diagnosis for your child, okay, for your son. I cannot speak to that, okay. Learning herbalism was perhaps one of the best things I ever did. It is a practice that I still hold true today after 25 years. Learning these alternative medicines and practices over the last couple of years, let me put it to you this way: about 2 years ago, I could barely even do bench presses because of my shoulders. The pain was so bad. Okay. Over the last year, through stretching, understanding the body, the nervous system, understanding the muscles and what muscles work where, surrounding my injury. Say, for an example, my left shoulder, for an example, was that severe subscapular strain and sprain. This affected every muscle going from my rib cage, where my floating ribs are, to the sternum, up into my back of my neck. Okay, I could not lift 3 pounds when this occurred. Over the next 6 months after the injury, my hand and my muscles popped little bit by little bit, moving up the arm. And the spots that were not affected anymore, such as the fingertips, working up the fingers, into the hand, the wrist, going up into the elbow, up into the shoulder, and so forth. There was a non ending tingling feeling, which meant that the nerve was still operational and the electrical impulses were still there, but it damaged the one in the back, in the upper back. Okay. So what I had to do was understand, okay, this is the nerve. This is what the result of the injury in the back. Okay. Basically right here. Okay. Because you have the heart right here too. And in between the heart and the back is where that injury is. Now, when you look up the term subscapular strain and sprain, okay, this is where the back muscle, the backbone pops outward, and all those ligaments and muscles tear away. Okay, so understanding your injury will help you heal yourself, and this is why each muscle group you have to tone, you have to strengthen. Okay, so again, what your child is going through is horrific. I can't imagine what you're going through. Just being there as a parent, I can't imagine what I would be like if my son had to go through that. Okay, but when you look at your injury or that type of injury, what muscles were affected, what joints were affected. What nerves were affected? And how can you reintegrate them into a working mechanism? What do you have to do to get them to work in the right manner? Okay. Even if you have a fractured neck, that's considered a broken neck. Okay. But how do you strengthen that neck? How do you strengthen the muscles surrounding that neck? How do you understand your injury? When you look at a knee that has had a carpet nail go through it, and then a partially torn ligament, you understand that that ligament tore because of calcium buildup. Okay. You understand that the injury needs to the knee joint is surrounding, you have a tissue, a pad that has two bones on either side. You have ligaments, a whole wad full, known as the bursa. You have the stabilizers on the cardinal directions of the knee itself. Okay? Now, understanding this knee, how do you get it to work again? Number one, you got to work on stretching daily. Different stretches. When you go to a physical therapist, they show you different workouts that you can do depending on where the injury and the weaknesses are. On the other hand, you get to build, you learn methods to stretching, but also to build that muscle. Okay. For me, it was working on a bicycle, stepping up and down off a stool, if you will, one of those what do you call those stools for the like the gym and stuff? You know, except for without the arm, the thing that comes up that you hold on to. You have to be by the wall, and you have to do little bits of squats and calf raises. You have to learn what muscles have to work in unison to make that knee work better and get away from that pain, to get away from all that stuff. So when I tell you it may look grim now, but I look back over the last year of just what I did with the injuries that I've had since my ex and I broke up. I benefited myself. Okay. Now, taking that as an example, like I said, I don't know what your son is going through. I don't know what the ailments are. I don't know any of that stuff. Look at his injuries. Look at all the muscles and joints and everything that are damaged or were affected by it. And then understand how you can tone and strengthen them. It will take time. It is not something that will take place overnight. And you need to know that. I'm not a professional doctor. Okay. I'm not a licensed physician. So I would recommend that you go to your doctor and say, "Hey, what do you think about this? Would this work?" And you show them all your research and all your notes and everything and what you've researched on that particular topic. And they'll look at it and go, "Huh, why didn't I think of this?" Or they'll sit there and go, "Yeah, I suppose it would work. Let's give it a try." You know, I would recommend. I would also recommend going to a physical therapist and working with a physical therapist on it, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be working with somebody that actually knows what they're doing. I spent years with physical therapists that didn't even have a fucking clue. When I broke my foot, my toe, I tore half the toenail off, and they couldn't even tell you the difference between gout and an ingrown toenail. And this is coming from medical professionals here in America. Yeah, they can't even tell you the difference between gout and an ingrown toenail. Wow. And the reason for that is because the symptoms are so similar. Okay, the symptoms are so similar. The joint pain, the redness, the swelling, the inflammation, it's there in both things. So again, knowledge seeking. You have to root it out. You have to delve into it. Okay? Only you can do that. And you're welcome, Femi. So yeah, it's something that will take time. It's taken me 10 years to get to where I'm at. 10 years. Just getting my body back into where I can actually go out and do butterflies with free weights. Okay? Doing lifting the barbell up, doing pull-ups both ways, doing lunges, off a bench with my hands behind me. I couldn't do that 2 years ago. I couldn't do that 5 years ago. But here I am doing that. And now I've got my feet on one bench and my hands on the other, and I'm doing dips. It's because I studied, I was inspired to delve into the anatomy, different levels of the anatomy, learning the muscle groups, learning the muscular vascular systems, learning the neuro systems, you know, the joints and everything, and wondering how do they work? How can I get them to do what they need to do? And now I'm putting on muscle. I'm putting on bulk because I've done that. I'm learning to reverse arthritis through herb, through herbalism, through fruits and vegetables, lowering cholesterol and the creatine levels and all that stuff to live a better life. I put into play a lifestyle that is benefiting me, and I know that you and your son can do the same thing. I have no doubts about it. But you got to apply it. You got to seek it out. It's not going to be easy. And like I said, I would recommend that you talk to a physician, talk to physical therapists, and kind of get some pointers through your research into the body and about those particular injuries. Because learning about your injuries is perhaps the root of the beginning of all gnosis and understanding how to reverse it. Okay. Now, like I said, I just given you two examples. Okay, my personal injuries and that of an elder. Okay, somebody I've known for a long time, and like I said, that's not my story to tell on what this individual went through. So I just gave you a little puff piece, an overview of of where this elder was and where he is now. Okay, whereas I went into details with mine. So basically, it's a memory thing, but also a physical thing. So yeah, it's just about it's basically it's like having a stroke. Basically, you've got to retrain yourself, and that's something that's easily done. It's just going to take time and patience, dedication, complete fealty in it. And if you really want to learn how to walk after having your back broken, well, guess what? It's going to be painful. You got to reset the spine, and you got to go for it. That means it's going to take weeks, months, even years, even if you to be able to do anything. It does not come easy. There is no easy button, sadly. I wish there was, but there's not. Perhaps 50 years down the line or 200 years down the line when we have flying cars and space travel, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe we'll get inoculated and have reversed everything, instant healing, like on Star Trek. Who knows? But yeah. So you've gone about 10 years now. He's gone 10 years. Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's taken me a long time to get to where I'm at. But I've also gone through a lot of tests and a lot of trials in between. hmm And again, psychology has to be put into play. Counseling, even. Personally, I recommend nature because nature is a great healer. It's peaceful. So, but that's just me. But like I said, It comes down to the individual because nobody's the same. Nobody really is the same and goes through the same. There's a lot of similarities in it, but when it comes down to it, you got to go with the individual and what works with the individual. So you're welcome. But anyways, I got to go get my son, and I got to figure out something for lunch for the family. Like I said, I spoil my family rotten, and I'm pretty sure if the dog hasn't. I tried getting the dog out earlier this morning, about 7, even 9 o'clock, and she just rather just lay there. It's her first heat cycle, so 15 months old. So I'm hoping she's ready to go out for a walk now. So because it's almost noontime where I'm at. So with that said, I'm going to sign off. I want to thank Femi for jumping on here with me. I want to thank Twilight Sun Animism for jumping on here with me. I want to thank you two for communing with me. And for those of you who have liked this video, thank you. It means a lot. And if you don't want to miss anything for upcoming videos, feel free to hit that notification button and even subscribe even to the channel, so you can keep up with it, the videos I do. So basically, the denial factor. Yeah, he's in that setting his feet stage is what that is. Been there, done that. So trust me, I've been there. I get it. You're welcome, Femi. Well, feel free to reach out sometime, Twilight. I'm either on posting stuff on TikTok, or I post stuff in my group on Facebook. Sometimes my main profile page. So, uh, I mean, I'm always around. I always try to reply when I can, even with my hectic lifestyle. So, working in fast food takes up a lot of time and energy, but being a family man also takes up time, not just being a full-time practitioner and teacher, and literally being a practitioner myself. So, oh, cool. If not, just shoot me just shoot me a friend request, Femi, on my Facebook account, and it's got the same symbol as what's on my YouTube, so you can actually know which one it is. Um, Outside of that, I mean, yeah, I do have Skype, and I do have Messenger. I've also got what is that called? A sec here. And it's sad that I actually have to go underneath my phone to remember these damn things. All right, I've got Google Chat. I've got Nextdoor. Hell, I've even got an Odyssey account. And like Skype and WhatsApp. So yes, it's all right there. All right. So with that said, I'm out. And okay, cool. Yeah, I like being in the shadows as well. Unfortunately, but I don't know. There's just something freeing about being in the background, just watching as everybody's doing their thing, and you're just like, yeah, whatever. I don't feel like commenting, but eventually you do if it's worthwhile. I have the knowledge, I'll share it. If not, it's like, give me a couple of days, I'll look it up. So, yeah, I did that last year too. But like I said, I'm out. Have a good day.